Jurassic Park, an iconic film that despite its age has stood the test of time, remaining fiercely popular even in 2020. How has it managed to stay so relevant, and why does it still remain objectively better than many of its modern counterparts? And what made it so great in the first place? Well, these are answers we aim to find out in today's video, where we return to the original masterpiece that is Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, on the face of it, may seem like just another movie about dinosaurs and thrilling action, but there's more to it than just simple thrills and excitement. Woven into the story in large part thanks to Michael Crichton's source material is the matter of man vs God, a debate that rages on even in our lives today with matters such as stem cell research or with artificial intelligence. This isn't a new concept, but it's still a particularly interesting one. Should we advance and develop technological marvels beyond our comprehension and control, or should we be content to stay as we are, comfortable and safe within the boundaries of society we have created? Of course, each case has its own merits, and each can be right or wrong on a case-by-case basis. Unlike Jurassic Park, where the answer is clear and obvious, they probably shouldn't have messed with dino DNA. On one side of the coin is John Hammond, a man who believes in progress and diving into the unknown. He thinks he can even control the creatures that he creates in Jurassic Park. To quote Ian, he and his scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think of whether they should. On the other side, we have Ian Malcolm, a man who believes sincerely that man isn't meant to meddle. Dinosaurs had their shot 65 million years ago and were selected for extinction, an almost literal quote from him in the movie itself during a debate between him and, you guessed it, John Hammond. These opposing ideologies present themselves time and time again during the movie, and Malcolm is ultimately proven to be correct when Hammond's empire comes toppling down, proving that control cannot be imparted on these animals, at least not at the level Jurassic Park is attempting. This is further evidence with the lysine contingency failing, and the animals breeding within the park. Nedry or not, Jurassic Park was always doomed to fail, he just accelerated the process. Now, even though we know Malcolm is correct and we see this play out, it still brings up an interesting point that there will always be men like Hammond in the world, proven further in future films when humans time and again make the classic mistake of thinking they can control nature. The story is fun and we all enjoy it for the action and the dinosaurs and the characters that we can imprint on because we see ourselves in those scenarios, but it's also relatable on a deeper level because in our society there will always be men like Hammond who recklessly push through technology or ideologies that cost lives and damage our society, and I think this is a really interesting concept and my personal biggest takeaway from the film. You can interpret the film in other ways, these were just my thoughts on reflection and how it mirrored our society. Aside from this, the plot is pretty straightforward and you can have fun with it whether you look deep into the bowels of the story, or if you just come to watch dinosaurs wreak havoc and humans get eaten. It has something for everyone, which is probably why it's so appealing to such a large audience. I'd say the next time you watch Jurassic Park, try and listen closely to Malcolm, because his beliefs and theories are integral themes of the movie itself. Control and our lack of it are proven time and time again throughout, and you really can just see everything on the horizon for the fate of this park. I didn't want to simply describe the plot because you already know what happens in Jurassic Park. Simply put, Hammond needs some experts to sign off on the park due to doubt from the investors. They all visit the island together and Nedry's sabotage signals doom for the human inhabitants. All hell breaks loose and everyone tries to make it safely off Nublar without being eaten, some being less successful than others. My point is, while I have explained it briefly there, everyone has already seen the movie and to be honest probably even has their own deeper thoughts on the plot beyond that. I wanted to try and expand a bit and explain why it might be that you relate to the movie more than you even know yourself, and if you have any extra takes that maybe I haven't thought of, please do let me know in the comments. Moving on from the plot, I think plainly and simply the characters and their respective actors and actresses are right up there for me as one of the reasons this film works so well. Personally, I think a lot of newer monster movies tend to put too much of an emphasis on the monsters themselves, leaving us with very little to relate to in terms of characters and storytelling. But Jurassic Park and pretty much all of its sequels, barring maybe JP3 but we'll get to that, give us some damn relatable human beings with actual motives, solid development, and for the most part a connection. So when their lives are hanging in the balance, we do feel tense and nervous that something terrible could befall our quote-unquote heroes. So let's review the roster. Alan Grant is a paleontologist who loves theorising about dinosaurs and their behaviours through his discoveries in the ground, fossils. He starts the movie very anti-children, and his arc is all about caring for Lex and Tim throughout their travels on Nublar, discovering that children aren't all that bad. A very relatable story for most adults, but carried out subtly in between the action and excitement. Ellie Sattler is his partner in both fossils and life, and she is a paleobotanist, meaning she is an expert in ancient fauna. Ellie is a very strong and helpful individual throughout their time on Nublar, offering to help out several times to go out into the park once the fences are down. She and Alan are separated for most of their time on the island, but she helps Muldoon twice with going to retrieve Hammond's grandchildren, in the process rescuing Malcolm, and also venturing out for the power when something bad has clearly happened to Ray Arnold. Despite being away from the only person she really knows and is comfortable with, Ellie doesn't shy away from any of her experiences on the island, and probably leaves as one of the more scarred individuals due to her encounters. Ian Malcolm, a chaotician by his own volition, provides some of the more philosophical debates throughout and really is the only one to see the impending doom ahead. While Ellie and Grant can see the danger in bringing the dinos back to life, they're definitely moved by the presence of these magnificent creatures. But while Malcolm can see their beauty, he knows they should never have been brought back to life and openly berates Hammond for his lack of humility before nature. Ultimately, dinosaurs were never meant to be here, to coexist with man, and the control Hammond is trying to impose on the park is flawed beyond compare. For me, Ian is the audience's stand-in and the man that eloquently puts what's on the viewer's mind. While dinosaurs are awesome, it's bound to go wrong. John Hammond, the man who created Jurassic Park himself, is next on the list. Hammond has always been a very strange character to me because he's extremely likeable, but when you think about what he's done and the naivety he displays, he really isn't a very good person. Not only that, but he repeatedly fails to learn his lesson when it comes to his park. Now I know this is out of a love for dinosaurs and the creatures he's created, but he openly dismisses human life with his lack of hindsight in the role he's played during these horrific events. Failing to learn from his mistakes costs lives, but even when lives have been lost, he still tries to debate with Ellie about learned lessons and a next time, before she rightly puts him in his place. Eventually, John does learn his lesson, but he's certainly a very interesting character, and one I think is probably given a little too much leeway by people, because I think he can be a little conniving and definitely insensitive when it comes to the events that take place on the island. I'm often torn between feeling sorry for him and wondering about his ulterior motives, because there are a few instances where he appears to manipulate people into doing his bidding, such as luring Ellie and Alan to the island with the promise of more funding, or as I mentioned before, even after Gennaro is dead and his grandchildren are missing, still clinging on to this delusion that it could work next time. There's also a part in The Lost World where I'm very suspicious of him, but we'll get to that when we review that movie. Then we have a few characters in the background of the film. Lex and Tim feature often, but are usually just used to further Grant's arc in my opinion, with the exception of a couple of times such as Lex rebooting the security. Muldoon is certainly interesting and someone I wish had survived the events of JP, but much like Hammond, he underestimates nature and tries to hunt a creature that he knows relatively little about. He's a brave character though and often puts himself in dangerous ways to help others, such as going out to rescue Hammond's grandchildren, or by helping Ellie get to the maintenance shed by going after the raptors alone and drawing them away. Although I'm unsure if this was done out of helpfulness to Ellie or out of wanting to hunt the raptors. I only say this because when he delivers the line, "I've got her," nice impression, and looks directly towards the raptors in the bushes ahead, it's uttered with almost an air of triumph, so make your own interpretations on that one. But he more than likely saved Ellie's life regardless. Gennaro is a typical businessman / lawyer character who oozes everything that's wrong with Hammond's vision for the park, focusing solely on money over the danger these creatures possess. It's no surprise the two men who agree on the park's potential, albeit for different reasons, Hammond for his vision and legacy and Gennaro for the money, are also the two most deluded when it comes to the dangers the park poses. He's the first to run when he sees the dinos in real life, before any real danger is apparent, abandoning Lex and Tim and in turn setting up his own death. Then we have Nedry. Nedry is a fairly straightforward one-dimensional character that again underestimates nature, noticing a theme here, and ultimately perishes at the hands or teeth of a Dilophosaurus. He feels underpaid by Hammond. Wait, is this spared no expense Hammond? And decides to sabotage the park and escape with the embryos which will seal his fortune. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't really go his way and actually seals his fate instead. Nedry isn't the most interesting of characters, but he does accelerate the process of all hell breaking loose, so he is vital to the plot. Ray Arnold does very little in all honesty, but he's played by the amazing Samuel L. Jackson, and he was supposed to get a very gruesome death scene before the storms during production waylaid the plans. Hence why we see Ellie with the arm of Arnold without actually seeing how he met his fate. I always thought it was weird that the arm was just there with no explanation of how it got there, but hey, they have plans for it so we can let it slide. These wonderful people, both the actors and actresses and their respective characters, really provide a solid spine to this film, and I think while the dinosaurs themselves are amazing, I like that we spend more time with our human characters than anything else. It even makes us value the 14 minutes of screen time we get with the dinos, because it's used sparingly. Ultimately we feel tense and enjoy these films because we can see ourselves in those situations, but the more you show of only dinosaurs and action and less of that human element, the more you lose from the quality of the film, because while it's fun to watch action, it becomes less relatable. Okay, so this is a pretty big one for me personally, and I think it's integral to why this film has remained relevant and still looks amazing today, even though it's 27 years old. I am a big fan of CGI when it's done correctly, and I think Jurassic Park may be one of the better examples of it being done well. They blended the use of practical effects and CGI to create a film that would look amazing even years later. Now they did this by using some insanely detailed animatronics courtesy of Stan Winston, and by using CGI alongside those. So for shots where the CGI would look fake or become apparent that it wasn't real over time, they would use the animatronic instead. So an example would be on close-up shots of Rexy where you'd be able to see the detail and determine quite easily if it was CGI. You couldn't do so because it was a real element. Being able to see this very intricate animatronic instead that did look real enough to physically touch pulled you in even more and made the film and the situations feel even more immersive. Then for wide shots or ones where it was impossible to use the animatronic, they'd use the CGI because it wasn't as apparent that it wasn't a real dinosaur. The way Spielberg filmed these scenes was just genius because it incorporated both of these techniques, and there's rarely a shot where you feel like it doesn't look genuine. Now I love modern day CGI personally, and I think sometimes it's really hard done by. As an example, some people don't love that Jurassic World used so much CGI and so little in terms of practical effects, and while I do agree that I think it would have been cool to see more practical elements past the Dino-Apatosaurus, I think the dinosaurs in that film look stunning. I do however think that Jurassic Park will probably look better for longer than Jurassic World and any newer movies with an overabundance of CGI, because as the technology develops and better CGI becomes available year on year, the effects from movies like Jurassic World will become easily identifiable as objectively worse in comparison. When compared to Jurassic Park, which was filmed in a clever way by blending the two, I think the original will come out on top as time goes on. The key to beating time is simply to limit the amount of CGI used within the movie, and film shots in a clever manner when using the technology. Now, does that mean that Jurassic World, any of the MCU films or other franchises look poor for having so much CGI in their movie? To some people maybe, but to me I say no. Those movies look visually stunning and you can't deny that they're brought to life in a very convincing way. But my main point is that some early 2000s films already look quite old and dated, and these tend to be the films that use quite a lot of CGI. In comparison, what we know for certain is that Jurassic Park still looks great 27 years later. Honestly, there really aren't very many criticisms. Jurassic Park is a great film and is thoroughly enjoyed by people all over the world. It's still regarded as the best film in the franchise by a great many people, which is impressive given there have been 5 films now, some of which have been produced much more recently. I didn't really mention the music in the other categories, but it's yet another marvellous part of this film and helps to solidify it as one of the greats. John Williams, as usual, does an excellent job, and while a great many people would say Jurassic Park's score isn't as recognisable as, say, Star Wars, it's definitely on a par with it in terms of quality. The main theme gives me chills every time I hear it, and I don't want anyone to think my lack of mentioning the music is because I don't like it or feel indifferent on the matter. It's just that the score for me is something beyond words. Even if I tried to explain why it's so good, really all just comes down to the feeling it gives me from hearing it, and that for me is something I can't really explain. Simply put, I love the music composed for Jurassic Park. For this series of Jurassic film reviews, the original ranks at number 1 for me. I'll fill in the rest of this table as we go through each film, but it's probably no surprise to many that this is my favourite. I think my biggest praise for the film would be that it still looks amazing, feels relatable, and excites me even in 2020, and for a film that came out before I was even born, that's an impressive accomplishment. It has become a cultural phenomenon of sorts, and much like Star Wars, inspired a generation of fans. Sure, there are a couple of filming errors. You can see the strings with the Dilophosaurus as it attacks Nedry. The animatronic T-Rex and its CGI version look different in terms of the skin tone, and I'm pretty sure one of them is missing some teeth compared to the other. And then some of the embryos that Nedry steals have spelling mistakes on. I think it's like Stegosaurus instead of Stegosaurus. But these are only details you would pick up from hearing about them from others, or from those most eagle-eyed among you. I've watched the film countless times, and I only recently spotted the strings on the Dilophosaurus. Another detail I never really appreciate is Lex's IT skills and the fact she can restore security to the park by recognising its systems. I know they set her up to be skilled with computers, but come on, this is a dinosaur park. A kid should not be able to work these systems effectively. If you can think of or know any more that irk you, please let me know in the comments. However, these are a drop in the ocean compared to the rest of the film. Real love and care was put into Jurassic Park, and my god it shows. They took risks but made sure the plot and characters made sense in the context of the film they sit within, and made a very realistic, grounded take on what it would actually be like if a dinosaur theme park existed in real life. The dinosaurs themselves look especially brilliant, whether it's an animatronic or through the use of CGI, and if they didn't look good in this film it potentially would have flopped, even with all of the other amazing features throughout. They look real enough to touch, and not silly like the older monster movies that utilise stop motion animation, and I'm so glad they didn't use that technique. While I mentioned the use of CGI was done so sparingly, it was still done well when utilised, and is a big reason why scenes like the Jeep chase with Rexy look realistic. Imagine that scene with stop motion, it just wouldn't have looked the same. All in all, Jurassic Park may very well have spawned a love for dinosaurs in many children and adults with its release. This film alone has given us years of entertainment with its success by encouraging more movies to be produced, video games, books, merchandise, etc. If this film wasn't a success, we wouldn't have anywhere near the level of Jurassic content we have today, so we should all be extremely grateful for the movie that started it all. An adventure 65 million years in the making. If you enjoyed the video guys, please leave a like and comment on your favourite thing about the original film, whether it's a deep philosophical question or just simply dinosaurs being dinosaurs. I'd love to hear it. And also subscribe for more Jurassic reviews and related content. This is the Fossil Fool, signing out.